You're watching Public Affairs. Berkowitz is my name, and politics is our game, and we will be doing lots of politics and public policy this evening because we have as our guest Mike Flannery, who is the Dean of the Chicago Press Media, Press Corps. He has been covering this stuff longer, we were just speculating before the show, longer than anybody else in Chicago. We could go on and on about Mike Flannery, but we're not going to do that because everybody's dying to know Mike. Because you have been here so long, you would know.
There must be somebody who's done it longer than I, Jeff, but I'm happy to wear that jacket.
All right, so can Blago beat the rap? That's the question. And if anybody's going to know the answer, you're going to know.
Well, because I don't think, in fact, that federal prosecutors would bring a third trial, I think that a hung jury would be as good as an acquittal. And it is possible that he'll walk.
And if that happens, if you get a hung jury on all counts, and so he's got that one count from previously,
well, that's
lying
right,
to the
because
FBI.
he
Well,
is
maybe that
facing,
goes away. It could go away on appeal, but we don't know. So he's got that.
He is facing jail time on that.
But so if he gets a hung jury here in the second trial on all counts, does the U.S. attorney come back and do it a third time, or does he walk except for that one count?
My guess right now is that they would not have a third trial.
And what are the chances he's going to get a hung jury on all counts, as you see it? Your prediction?
You know, I think it's. I think there's a good chance. I think it's better than 50-50, maybe 75-25, that he's going to get at least one more felony count. You know, the jury's been out a long time. We'll perhaps know by the time this show is airing.
We should say we're taping this on June 26th. June 26th. 2011. It'll start airing in the suburbs tomorrow, God willing, if we don't.
On Monday the 27th.
On Monday the 27th.
We could
and then
have
a week later, on July 4th, it'll air throughout the state of Chicago. If you're watching this in the city of Chicago on Monday evening, 8:30, Channel 21, you notice we've been gone. Public Affairs has been showing at different times. We are now back in the regular slot. We are back with Mike Flannery. We expect Mike will be here weekly, right? On July 11th,
I'll have
July
to talk
18th.
to my bosses at Fox Chicago
with
News about that.
Carol Fowler, she said it's fine, okay, right?
Well, you know, I think there's a pretty good chance that at least one more felony, maybe two more felonies, would be added to Blagojevich's rap sheet. And as you know, being an attorney, if that's the case, if there were two more felony convictions, as I understand
he's looking at 10 to 12
he's
years.
looking at hard time, more time than Governor Ryan got.
Oh yeah, more than the 6.5 years. And I've heard different things. I've heard when it goes up to like 10 years, you're going to be doing hard time at a medium security prison. Other people say, no, there's always kind of a soft camp around the medium security place where you could do it. It's not quite Oxford, but it's like that. You know?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I don't. But all that said,
we'll have Dean Palalis back, and he will give us the answer.
He's down. Former Governor Ryan's down at Terre Haute, which has a hard. Indeed, that's where Timothy McVeigh was executed. I was down there for his execution. There is a very hard time part of that prison, but where George Ryan and Eddie Verdoliak and
softer place.
Yeah, they're
still not fun. But
they're at the campsite.
They're at the camp. So there is a sort of a nice part of any prison.
Yeah, it's not necessarily
now, and
nice.
he is at Terre Haute because he wanted two reasons, I guess. One, he has a medical condition, and they have actually better medical facilities than they did up in, what is it, the Club Fed, Oxford?
Oxford, Wisconsin.
And
That's
also,
where Dan Rostenkowski got his Oxford education.
Right.
But it's...
former guest, we should say, of Public Affairs, the late Dan Rostenkowski.
I don't rule out the possibility, to return to your original query, I don't rule out the possibility that there could be a hung jury and that, Blagojevich would end up doing relatively little time.
So when you say 75-25, so about 25% chance, as we sit here today on June 26th,
that he could just skate.
And
face only that lying
that
to
one
the FBI.
Count of lying to the FBI.
And I think he
it's
would
under
do,
appeal, and so if
I think he could
prevails
do some,
there,
he could do some prison time on that.
Are you really?
Yeah.
I mean,
he could.
He's looking like 12, 18 months, something like it. It's 1 to 5 years, but okay.
Mm-hmm.
And that might be appropriate, would you say, Mike? I mean, I know you have a lot of affection because we were talking before the show for with Rod Blagojevich. Now, you told me a story.
He's the worst governor of my lifetime.
You told me a story. Could you tell our viewers that's, I mean, it's
Well,
really...
Blagojevich and I had a fraught relationship.
This is an exclusive, a public affairs exclusive. I don't think we've ever heard this story before.
I haven't told this story on the air before, but I've told it to a few people, including my bosses. But it was, my recollection is that it was the summer of '08, 6 months before he gets arrested, and the General Assembly in Springfield is coming down to the final few days.
Summer of 2008.
And Blagojevich was in the Capitol building, which was a fairly infrequent occurrence.
So he was governing. He was doing good, so to speak. Okay?
And he holds a news conference with a group of kids. I forget the topic. He sees me, and at the end of the news conference, he points to me and goes like this. And so I turned to my camera guy and said, if I'm not back in 10 minutes, call the cops. And he grabs me by the elbow, and he pulls me into the ceremonial part of the governor's office. And then he slams the door just as my intern has walked in, but the state trooper bodyguards were kept out. And he begins to MF me, and I don't mean Mike Flannery.
You mean the F word?
That
rhymes with, a four-letter word that rhymes with tuck,
starts
with F.
The word that the jury has heard on tape now many, many times as effing Golden, yeah. And he was distraught and upset about some stories I had done. And, you know, he really, really despised the story I did about his style of governing, that he wasn't at the Thompson Center, wasn't at the state capitol, stayed home sometimes all day, had a political office near his home, would go there and, you know, was focused on everything but governing.
And that, in fact, was the office, that one of the places that was bugged by,
correct,
for the wiretaps by the FBI in the last 6 to 8 weeks of his,
correct,
of his serving of governor before he was arrested.
Right, and
that was the Friends of Blagojevich office.
Yeah, and on Montrose, and that is where
he spent his time. That's where he hid. You were telling me
he was
either
telling
at home. He would be hiding from them. He didn't want to deal with tough budget matters, so he didn't want to. He would be hiding from his staff.
People inside the governor's office would just they were at their wits' end because he wasn't giving them guidance. He wasn't making decisions. He was
Bob Greenlee, the deputy governor, has since confirmed that in his testimony. Exactly what you're saying. You were being told that. Bob Greenlee subsequently testified.
Yeah, we did 10 minutes. I was at Channel 2 at the time. We did 10 minutes on the 10 o'clock news, a very unusual amount of time, as you know, to devote to a story, because Carol Fowler, who was then the news director at Channel 2, now my boss at Fox Chicago News, you know, she and I felt this was an extraordinarily important story and one to put out there. And Blagojevich handed us a wonderful gift the day it aired, when he called a special session on whether the CTA should get some additional funding. And instead of being there at the Capitol in Springfield, he's at the Blackhawks game up in Chicago.
He flew back up there on state money, right?
And the General Assembly is working late that night on his command.
But
it was classic
maybe it was a way of showing the General Assembly he's the boss, he's the leader.
You
not
could
Mike
say
Madigan.
that.
He was doing that for, again, the public good, to get the kind of health care that he wanted to help the people. You know, he said the people.
Has Aaron Goldstein thought about retaining you as the press spokesman
I'm
for
here,
the
Aaron,
press
for the
for
third
defense?
trial. I am here for the third trial. Completely fair and balanced. We will be up there. I will come back, not practicing law, just to defend Rod Blagojevich. Rod, come back on the show. Here you go. No, but seriously,
That'd be a good show.
Actually, this is a serious point. I know if the evidence is as it seems, is true, as it seems, if it is, I think it would clearly be the case that Rod Blagojevich was guilty as charged of a number, if not all, of those counts. I'm saying if it's true. We're not saying it's all true.
Right.
Sale of the Senate seat inappropriately, quid pro quo, state action for personal benefit for Rod Blagojevich. He offers to appoint essentially Valerie Jarrett. In exchange, he gets either the position of HHS, Health and Human Services Secretary, or a high-paying position in a 501c not-for-profit organization funded by, as he's put it, Obama's rich friends, Bill Gates and Soros and so forth. Okay, that's just one, right? Then there's the Children's Memorial Hospital. Again, another quid pro quo for personal gain using state action. Then there's the road builders.
In Children's case, the threat was that he was going to delay a measure that would have increased their state reimbursement until the CEO of the hospital came across with money.
First it's $50,000 contribution, then he got soft and he said only 25. That's all you need.
And now, in fairness to Blago, this guy, who's no political naive, had made political contributions before.
To others and Rod, so business as usual.
So had the racetrack guy. The idea that this gentleman didn't know the ins and outs of Illinois
and
politics.
In fairness to Rod, he
right.
never called up, and nobody on his behalf called up and said, look, if you want the increase in pediatric Medicaid rates, which was at the issue, that they could not push through, but they could essentially issue that. If you want that, you got to give me a campaign cut.
On the other hand,
he never said that, right?
That's correct.
And nobody on his behalf said that.
On the other hand, as you and I both know, you don't need to stick a gun in the ribs of a guy like that to say stick him up. There was the implicit threat.
There was. Well, was it even the same time? Because a lot of times people benefit. Look, just to pick a name, Barack Obama, President of the United States. He probably got a contribution from a few folks. Even though there's a campaign limit law, there's a way of circumventing it legally. In terms
with the bundling.
Somebody could give a few $100,000 bundling.
Have a party, invite all your wealthy
and that
pals.
person might become ambassador to New Zealand or something, right? or Macedonia or something like that, okay? Or seriously. So that happens.
Sure.
Is that a case where you say Barack Obama has violated the law and should be put in jail because he obviously got funds, and in exchange for that was personal gain to him, campaign funds. He got that, and in exchange he uses government action to appoint somebody.
We'd have to
seriously. I mean,
we'd have to go back and lock up every president who's still alive.
My point precisely.
We might dig up George Washington and put him at Oxford.
Right. I'm not picking on Barack. I'm just using that to illustrate.
Well, I'm not defending him, except to say that.
Did Rod do anything
You're
different
putting
there?
your finger right on what the Adams in the first trial
Sam
had
Adams Jr.
and
his
what he said, and now what Aaron Goldstein and his colleagues in the second trial are arguing, which is
Shelley Soroski.
Hey, and Shelley, by the way,
Elliott, the whole
Shelley,
team.
by the way, made big contributions to Blago and then gets appointed to an important state board.
Actually, they used to work together. Rod worked in Shelley's old law firm.
Right. And so
this is the way life works, Mike.
That's
you
the Blago
that?
argument.
Does it work in the media somewhat the same way? People have friends in the media, right?
The argument is everybody's doing 90 down the Kennedy Expressway, and I'm the only guy the state police pulled over.
Right. Because Mike Madigan wanted it that way, right? Mike controls the whole party in the state. You know that.
Well, but he doesn't control the federales.
He doesn't.
Do you think Mike Madigan dictated to Pat Fitzgerald to conduct this investigation of Blago?
I wouldn't say that, but there are ways in which you can facilitate things. And, if you trace it, I don't want to impugn the integrity of Patrick Fitzgerald or the U.S. Attorney's Office. All I'm saying is it's kind of
So
interesting.
this was a sucker punch by Mike Madigan. Wow.
I mean, you've heard, I won't name this, but a prominent person in the media, you might be able to guess, said what this whole thing shows, the Blagojevich trial and all that, it shows that state politics under Rod was really dirty, but city politics under Mayor Daley, no problem. Can you guess who said that? Well, we won't, but a major person in the media said, what's the implication there is that there is stuff going on in City Hall.
I know that John Cass wrote that in his column 100 times.
There you go.
Maybe 1,000 times.
There you go. Okay. My source has been fingered, so to speak. But Cass would say that. And look,
hiding in plain sight.
We would like to have John Cass on the show so he could defend himself, but he has declined repeatedly. But we love John just as well, just in case. But the point is, okay, so you agree that Rod is doing something here quite similar to everybody else. And therefore, it's no defense if you get caught for a speeding ticket, no defense to say the other guys are speeding too.
Former city treasurer Miriam Santos she mounted that same defense, and it didn't work. She ended up in the women's prison over there by Pekin, and her mistake, and again, Mike Madigan was involved in that and actually was called to testify at her trial.
There you go.
And
see?
And
for
he
these
was
folks
asked,
bellying up to the bar.
She made the stupid mistake of saying on a recorded conversation with a guy she was trying to get money from, time to belly up to the bar. And again, she didn't explicitly say you won't get any more city business, but that was the implication that the jury and prosecutors saw, and she ended up doing time.
Was that reversed on appeal or just part of it?
No, she
did do time, but
she
something
did do
was
time,
reversed
and
later on.
part of it's been upheld.
Okay.
And
Okay.
so
We got to go on. But
I don't think that
the short of
I'm
your
not
saying is,
persuaded by
despite
that Blago argument.
despite what Blago said to you, despite that, you'd have to concede some of what he's saying here in his defense may actually be accurate. Would you concede that?
Yes. He went over the top. He's a nitwit. He has no control over what comes out of his mouth when he's in some of these situations.
But
I think though that he's guilty.
You think he's guilty?
Yes, he's absolutely guilty. But does that mean that he should be breaking rocks in the hot sun on Devil's Island someplace? No.
Not really.
Maybe
maybe give him probation.
Would I
for
be
2 years.
outraged? Has he?
Has he suffered enough?
The Tribune's Eric Zorn wrote last weekend that there was, in effect, he suffered enough. I mean, he's flat broke. He's been humiliated. It'll be tough. It'll be tough for him to get a gig anywhere except with Jon Stewart or
Pay to play
Stephen
on,
Colbert.
On steroids. A little plug for Elizabeth Brackett, our former guest.
Good book.
It's a good read.
Good book.
Elizabeth Brackett, TTW. But okay, so you have a little bit of sympathy for.
I wouldn't say that I have far more empathy for his daughters and for some other members of the family. His brother, I think his brother's a great guy. His brother Robert.
Switching gears, what makes Rombo run?
I think he wants to be president of the United States.
Rahm Emanuel, mayor of Chicago, wants to be president of the United States.
He has sworn to me on camera and off camera that he has no desire to be president, but I do think that's where he'd like to end up. You know what? And I'll tell you what.
2016, could it be a Clinton-Emanuel ticket? 2016, Rahm as vice presidential candidate with his former boss and friend. Well, the wife of his former boss.
Chelsea Clinton.
She would be attorney general.
No,
but seriously,
I don't rule anything out, and I'll tell you this.
2016 is a possibility for him on the ticket. Vice president, Hillary then does 8 years, and then Rahm's president, right?
I think that he.
You heard it first here on Public Affairs.
I'm not
you
sure.
Agree with him, Mike?
I'm not sure how that's going to go down. He's a young guy. He has a lot of time.
51, 50, something.
So he could run at any time for the next 20 years. He had been interested in being the first Jewish Speaker of the House, and then.
Is he the first Jewish mayor of Chicago? Or was there a prior Jewish?
No. He is the first Jewish mayor of Chicago. And you know what?
He would like
He's
to be the first
dynamo.
Jewish president of the United States.
And I think he would.
We thought Spitzer was going to do it. Instead, he ended up at CNN. But Rahm Emanuel is going to be the first Jewish American
Rahm would like to be. And
president.
let me tell you why. If he decides to run, the only way he will decide to run. If he decides to run, that would be very good news for the city of Chicago, because the only way he could possibly be a realistic candidate for president is if he tackles and doesn't necessarily solve, but makes huge progress on some of these gigantic problems facing the city of Chicago, such as the huge pension obligations, the indebtedness the city faces, the lethargic recovery. Getting a job, the job engine going again in the city. If you read somewhere that Rahm Emanuel,
you've been hearing in his first 30 days announcements, 1,200 jobs here, 1,400 jobs here, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Motorola and so forth, right?
Right.
You're not impressed?
You can't keep up. Well, it's not bad news, but it and
going to have to find some other way to create a lot of jobs.
Yes, right.
Lower taxes. Get his friends in Springfield to lower taxes, corporate and individual, right?
Right.
You agree. You're a supply sider, basically, right?
Well, I think that income tax increase was a huge mistake.
In the state.
Once
went from
in
3
the
to
state
5%.
Of Illinois. And you know what? Just given the pension obligations that we face, the city in 2015 is going to have to raise property taxes by 90% unless something is done.
About those public sector union pensions. Something is done
and
to reduce the obligations
not
of
just
those public sector unions.
Not just the unionized public employees, but this
public
is all
employees,
of them. Public employees.
Pensions.
This is the members of the
You gotta
council
cut
and
back.
the whole gang of
Mike
them.
Flannery's putting that out. You're putting out that they've got to cut back on that. the unions have to accept that, or we're in big trouble. Is that right, Mike?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
And Rahm, if
And the
anybody can do
schools.
it, because Rahm didn't get that, didn't get that much union support relative to, say, what Mayor Daley had.
Yeah, he had
Chico
almost,
had that.
almost none compared
So he can do
to
it.
what Daley had.
And he can do that to
He
the
did have
Chicago
some.
teachers unions. He did stick them already, right? He took back the 4% increase. Right move?
Well, I think
he's
it is.
tried to do
I think
that.
it
He's
is
tried
because
to do that.
what he wants is he wants to negotiate a longer school day. I mean, this is which leads
So he'll
to
give
the
it, give it
to
back
the
to them
schools.
for a longer school
The
day.
only way he's going to run for president is if he's made big progress in the public schools.
Education. What's
Yes.
his secret weapon? What's Rahm Emanuel's secret weapon to improve the quality of education in Chicago dramatically?
Well, I don't think there's a secret weapon because he's talked about it forever. He is a firm believer in three different things. He wants more parental involvement, so he is taking this California.
Can't make that happen as mayor. You can't make that happen.
He can't make that happen.
Okay, so what else is he
But the longer school day and
He can make that happen.
To add 10 days to a longer school
But
make it
that's
a
not,
longer school
it's
year.
not inputs that control this. What is the secret weapon to turn education around in the city of Chicago?
Well, and then he wants more charter schools and he wants more independent school opportunities.
Okay, bingo, that's it. Charter schools. There are about 8% of the kids, that's all, 8% of the kids are in charter schools in the city of Chicago, the 400,000, right? Does that sound right?
I don't know the
It
numbers.
could be 9%,
I know
but
that
it's
he
not
wants
much.
to. I know that he wants to
He
expand
needs to
it.
make it like 30%. If you can do that, if you can bring that kind of freedom of school choice to parents, 30% of the schools under the charter school regime, you can dramatically improve the quality of education, including test scores.
You know
Are
what?
you agreed? You agree with that, Mike?
I think that could be.
Did your kids go to the
don't
Chicago public schools?
think two of my kids did, and my last son didn't test into the. My third child didn't test in to the magnet program.
So your kids went to public schools, but they went to magnet schools.
They did.
Not to get personal
But
here,
they tested in?
But if they didn't
I
go
never
to
called
If
anybody.
they didn't go to magnet schools, would you have wanted them to be at a charter school
Yeah.
or a private school?
Yeah. No, I mean they would
So
have
you
gone.
agree with me? He's got to change.
They
this
would
thing
have gone
around
all the way through,
for the kids who
because-
can't get in the magnet
Although
schools.
again, it would have depended on which program. Would have depended on which school.
But your kids have done well. Slight digression. Where have they now? One of them's just graduated, right?
One of them just graduated from Indiana U, my
University.
daughter.
Neuroscience, right?
Neuroscience, and then she's taking a sales job here. She wants to take a year or two off before maybe going back to grad school, and then her big brother.
Anybody's
has
out
been-
there, call into public
Her big
affairs. Go
brother's-
get her a job.
Her big brother's been working at Fermi Lab for the last couple of years. He's a computer whiz. And
Where did he graduate
unfortunately,
from? Where did he graduate?
Case Western,
Okay. In Cleveland.
engineering in Cleveland, and he computer science was
So
his
two
big thing.
big-time grads, Indiana
And-
University, Case Western, and
And the little guy is at Northwestern.
Sophomore.
Going to be sophomore, going to be a junior, and
not a
he's gonna-
stone's throw away from where we tape in Skokie.
And
So
his-
you've got three very bright kids who are excelling.
Yeah, but I'll tell you, the older
You're
boy.
okay with the Chicago public schools because they happen to go to good public
Well,
schools.
the older boy, he went to the Illinois Math and Science Academy out in Aurora. I mean,
You guys got good genes.
got a
Look at
fantastic-
the genes the guys got from Mike Flannery and his spouse, right?
Yeah, so I don't know about that, but they got a good education, and I'm very grateful to the
Okay.
taxpayers of
All
the
right,
city
so
and the
charter
state.
schools, we need that, okay? If he does that, big impact. But what about the gangbangers? What is he going to do? And about these flash crowds, this crime activity that's going through
I'm
Michigan
going to tell
Avenue?
you what, on Father's Day, I went biking up and down the lakefront with my kids. I didn't see a single flash mob. What I did see a lot
But you
of...
know they exist, and you
Yes.
know they've been downtown. The
and
flash mobs, they.
Well, I don't know if they're flash mobs,
Mary
but
Mitchell
certainly
says
the
there's a
thugs
racial
have
angle
been.
here. Is there a racial angle here?
You know what? If Mary sees one, then I'll acknowledge that
You were
there
just
is
on
one.
this week.
But
You were on the Weekend Review
I
on
don't
TDW.
think-
You were
yes.
on with Mary Mitchell. Do you think that Mary sees that?
She does, yes.
She does, okay.
And so, I'm gonna recognize. I think she's a very
What's the
wise.
racial angle that she sees here?
That the young toughs, the thugs, the flash mob assailants are largely, if not entirely, African American young men, and the police the police effort to focus on them may run afoul of or may come close to being racial stereotyping or profiling. Rahm
think
and
there's
Gary
anything to it?
McCarthy. I disagree. I don't. I mean,
These folks
and
happen
again,
to be black, but the main thing that the problem is, from society's point of view, is that they're thugs in your words, right?
well,
You're-
they're
you
attacking
conclude that,
people.
yeah.
They're knocking people down.
Thuggish behavior.
Yeah, but here's the deal. I went up and down the lakefront.
You didn't see 'em.
Right, from midday till dusk. I saw black people, yellow people, white people, maybe some polka dot people, and I didn't see any trouble. Everybody was having a great time.
Did you go riding through Englewood?
I did not.
Did you go riding through a number of other black areas where people, as they were electing a mayor, were concerned and said they wanted safe neighborhoods, just like Beverly's safe, just like some of the neighborhoods on the south are safe, just like some of the neighborhoods in the northwest side? You know what I mean,
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
Those folks wanted that. They voted for Rahm Emanuel, not the African-American choice, Carol Moseley Braun. And they voted for Rahm in overwhelming numbers, and now they'd like to see safe streets. Are they getting them? 30 days into his administration, has he done anything to address that issue?
Well, I'll tell you, I do see the lakefront as being safer.
Okay, but I'm talking about Englewood and those
than it
other
was a
areas.
few weeks ago, last month.
That's a nice start. But what about Englewood?
I haven't seen the crime numbers for the last 30 days.
They
but
didn't change in 30
right,
days.
Here's the amazing story, Jeff, is that even in those areas, the murder rate is down. You know, Englewood was, and again, now that we can't say Rahm's done anything to change it in 30 days. Mayor Daley gets.
It's been over time, the murder rate's going down, but that's an is a national trend.
It's down
That's a national
60%.
trend. That's a national trend.
Although in some cities in the last year or two, it started to spike back up. It hasn't in Chicago.
Okay.
Let's keep our fingers crossed.
All right, so he improves education, he improves the crime level across the city of Chicago. Say he does those two things, is that enough for him to run for president of the United States?
And the budget and taxes. If that stuff is
What does he have to do about
control,
taxes? He needs to
and
privatize
there's
more?
job generation
He needs to
going
privatize
on.
more of the free market, would you say? Not so many security guards for Alderman Burke?
I'll tell you what, again, the Laborers Union, Local 1001, Lou Phillips, he has a resolution pending in front of the City Council Finance Committee to make it far more difficult for Emanuel to privatize anything because they perceive that that's the threat, and that is the threat that Emanuel's using with for example, certain parts of Streets and Sand, where Emanuel claims it costs $200 a ton to pick up garbage. Even in New York, it's only about 110, 118.
So do you want a more livable city in terms of cost? Do you want more jobs? Do you want the free market to flourish?
I want it all.
Okay, so tell this guy, who'd you mention who's pushing to prevent privatization?
Lou Phillips, who's an official of Laborers Local 1001 in Streets and Sand, so has about 700 members.
Would you say Lou is a problem in this area? And Rahm Emanuel's going to take care of that?
Lou's doing his job. Lou's doing his job.
But looking at it from public points, I know you're a reporter, but from a public policy point of view, you have to say he's a problem.
It's costing $200 a ton to pick up garbage here. And in New York City, last time I checked, not exactly a bastion of anti-union feeling, it's far less.
Okay. So, and part of curing that problem, the budget deficit, is to deal with the public employee unions and pensions and health care benefits,
and
right?
Not to,
and Rahm's
you know
going to do that.
And let me tell you, not to screw over public employees, not to make life miserable and more difficult for them.
When you tell current employees,
but to be fair.
So current employees whose benefits haven't vested, they should see lower pension benefits, in your view, Mike Flannery.
Not for anything that's been earned, but going forward, yes.
So current employees have to be a part of the solution.
Jeff, there's no way we can make the books balance.
Have you spoken to Rahm about that?
This is what he says.
Has Rahm been on for an extensive interview on Fox?
Yeah, he has. Yeah.
Since he was elected?
Yeah, not since he's been elected. No.
No, he hasn't been here. Where's Rahm? He should be, right?
I don't know.
I don't mean like 5 minutes. I mean 30 minutes. I mean, Rahm, come on over here, Flannery and Burke.
Now, are you a New Trier grad?
No.
Because I know you
my
were a
daughters
school
are.
official.
Winnetka School Board.
Okay. Well,
I come from Pacoima. Look,
maybe
I'm not a rich kid.
Maybe you could go to an alumni event with New Trier with your daughters. And
I've gone, and Rahm actually for their centennial, Rahm was there. They were celebrating.
Good for
Rahm.
him. Good.
Did you know Rahm went to New Trier West, the city boy?
He told me that, right?
Did you
and
tell
now
you
that's
that,
where the freshmen go, right?
No, that's right. And did he tell you that he had an afro at that time?
I've seen the photo.
You've seen it. They showed it. They put it up on the screen. That is probably
Somebody
why he
called
got
it a
that
Jufro.
vote. That is why he got that big vote from the African American community. This was the secret weapon.